Hey guys, thanks for watching this video on YouTube. I just want to jump in and say that if you are not following the Work Awesome Network on all social media platforms, I highly encourage that. It's the place to get updates on blog posts, on new episodes, on basically anything related to the Work Awesome Network. So jump over to wherever you get your content from, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're on all the platforms. If you are interested, we also publish these same episodes on audio platforms. So you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and pretty much anywhere you get your podcast. So if you would rather listen to this in an audio format in the car, on the way to work, in the office, I encourage you to jump over to those audio platforms and listen there. I also want to say, if you're interested in learning about the company behind the Work Awesome Network, AVIAN, you can jump over to the AVIAN website at avian.com, AVIAN.com. Thanks again for watching this video. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. It helps the video out. It helps it get in front of more people. Thank you again. And now back to this episode. Welcome to the Work Awesome Podcast. This is episode 6, Employee Ownership Going All In. So fun fact, AVIAN is a partially employee-owned company. We are 49% employee-owned. We'll talk more about that later. But today I have Sarah and Tara to talk about this topic with me. The description for this episode: if I told you you could own part of the company you worked for, would you believe me? Employee ownership is just that. Working for an employee-owned company has its benefits. In this episode, we'll chat about what we've learned about employee ownership in the first 2 or 3 years of working at an employee-owned company. And Tara, you can probably give me a more accurate number, because is it 2 years or is it 3 years that we've been?
It'll be 3 years this summer.
That's what I thought. So almost 3 years. AVIAN has been employee-owned. Pretty much still in the infancy stages, I would say.
You're a baby.
Yeah. So long road ahead of us, but it is still very exciting and a really cool topic to talk about, both internally and externally. So, Tara, this will be this is the second episode we're recording with you, or maybe third episode we're recording with you. I don't know.
Third, I think.
But the first one, I think, that will be released. What episodes are you on? I don't remember. Maybe this isn't the first one. Either way,
I could still tell you what I do.
Will you please explain what you do for the company as the Director of Communications?
Yes, I will. I'm Tara Strickle, and I'm the Director of Communications here at AVIAN. And what I do is manage and oversee all of our internal and external communication products. So those are written, visual, everything that Ian is doing from a digital standpoint. Some really exciting things.
Yeah. She is our ringmaster. And then Sarah, of course, is our talent resource manager, and I am our integrated communications and marketing specialist. I feel like every once in a while I switch those words, and I'm like integrated marketing communications specialist or integrated communications marketing. I don't know that it matters, but I switch them every once in a while.
I couldn't wait to hear what you were going to say next.
About what?
About your title.
Oh, yes.
Which title do you do today?
Well, maybe I should just start making them up. That would be more fun, I think, right?
I think that it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Let's do that next time. Next round. Okay. Because we're almost done recording the first few episodes for this season. So let's just start off with a very basic, complex question. What is...
A basic, complex question. Got it.
What is employee ownership?
So do you want my definition of the benefit to employees as far as like stock ownership, or what it means?
Let's go with, like, if I were to open up a dictionary of business terms, what would that dictionary say employee ownership? And then we'll talk more about the benefits and stuff later.
Yeah, so I guess the way that I explain employee ownership, especially to new hires that are joining the company, it is actively playing a role in what your organization is doing and kind of being a part of its success. Yes. So I guess that's kind of a basic explanation of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you make all the decisions within the company. I far from make all of the decisions, but as an employee owner, I actively seek out ways to contribute to the company's overall growth and success.
Yeah, and I guess the only term, not the only term, one of the terms that pops into my head is like investment. So by coming to work every day, by doing the best job that we can, we're investing in the company that we work for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So And we'll talk about some success stories. There's one big one that we always bring up that I like talking about because I like to think that it's going to happen to us at some point. But yeah, investing in the company that you work for by showing up. So I think that's the basic.
I mean, it's the idea that you're doing more than just a job.
Yeah.
It's yes, you are doing a job. You are completing a task. You produce a product. But employee ownership is really how you do that to continue to make the company and yourself successful.
Yeah, I do want to say at the very beginning of this podcast episode that we are going to talk a lot about like what employee ownership is and a lot of just like definitions and what it does for a company. At the end, we're going to tie it back to recruiting. So Sarah, be ready for that.
I'm ready.
But it's not going to be till the very end. So the next question, why would a company want to be employee owned? What are the benefits to the company as a whole, I guess?
So to me, that's an easy one because when you have employees that are invested in a different way, you're not just punching your time clock and kind of going home and not thinking about it holistically. You get employees that then provide you with really great solutions. We get some really wonderful suggestions when people feel as though this is our company and we have thoughts and ideas to make it the best it can be. So as an employee or as a business owner, that's what you want. You want people to feel like it's theirs, treat it like it's theirs.
Right. And so we're going on year 3. That means I was, and Sarah, we're both here probably, I think 1 or 2 years before we went employee owned, maybe 1.5.
Sarah's almost at 5 years.
Yeah. And this next January will be my 5 year, which is weird to say, but 5 years, right?
Yep.
So I forget where I was going with that statement. Oh, I remember now. This meeting that we have internally, Horizons.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty comfortable saying before we were employee owned, Horizons, it served a purpose, but I don't know that the people within AVIAN knew what that purpose was. Now that we're employee owned, now that we all have this investment, the stake in the company, pause. I'm sorry for everybody listening. I always hit the table and it makes really loud noises in the speakers. I'm going to try to stop doing that. Okay. So Horizons, it's a very basic overview. It's kind of like a business development meeting where we come up with new ideas for the company and kind of decide if it's something that is feasible to follow and to go down a path of. But before we were employee owned, I don't think there was the same investment, same understanding of what it did for the company. Now that we're employee owned, everyone wants the company to grow. So it seems like there's more participation in Horizons because everyone has this understanding of if they come up with good ideas that potentially make money for the company, that's going to help them in the long run. I guess the one thing we didn't explain is what's the monetary value of employee ownership for an employee?
So I gave the general description of employee ownership, kind of pie in the sky, like way up high view. Employee ownership and what it comes with when you decide to become an employee-owned company, it has stock benefits. So you start an employee stock ownership plan. And those stock benefits, every year the company is evaluated, and based on how well your company is performing, you get a stamp that says your company is worth X, which then translates into, based on how, different ESOPs do it differently, but you then get a retirement benefit from that if you are a plan participant in that plan. So it's the benefit side to employees, the monetary side is that if the company continues to perform well year after year and that stock price grows, your stock that you get allocated based on your vesting schedules and all kinds of great formulas, you then potentially get a pretty substantial payout when you retire. We know companies that have people have been ESOP for 10 plus years or more, and they retire and they have 6 figures in their employee ownership account. So really, really crazy to think about that. But yeah, those are the monetary rewards.
Right. So I guess, Sarah, to tie this a little bit back into recruiting before that big question I have at the end, have you received any questions thus far about us being an employee-owned company, and what do those questions look like? What are the answers? Just some
Sure.
general
Well,
ideas.
I think the initial response that I typically get is that people are really interested in that because they don't get that very often when they're job seeking. And then they kind of want to know the details. They want to understand, is it, are they just given stock? Are they, is there a vesting schedule? So some of those similar questions that people would ask about a 401k or other benefits. But I think the general feeling is that it's a huge benefit to have a situation where your success is contributing to the success of the company.
And I think that's a great point, is that how you tie employee ownership into the actual benefit you get from it is every day we come to work with the potential to affect that stock price in a positive way. Mm-hmm. So you go into that knowing that, and maybe you react to things a little bit differently.
Yeah. So let's just move on to this next question. What is ownership culture? Or I guess the way that we talk about it internally is more a culture of ownership. So it's worded a little bit differently. To me, it's the same idea of everyone's invested in the company. Everyone should want to help the company grow because in the long run, that's going to help their stocks grow and hopefully get to that six figures someday at retirement.
So I think that when you brought up Horizons, it made me think a little bit about the company and its history. Before we became employee owned in 2018, we had an ownership culture.
Right.
And that's why the transition from being, an LLC to an employee-owned business, and an AVIAN Inc. and an employee-owned business, it wasn't a hard transition because people already had that thought, the corporate value of taking care of each other. And that's why it's so important when you're looking for an organization to find that culture that fits your values. This was just yet another way that the company demonstrated that value. And so when I think about this organizational ownership culture, it's really about how can we collectively do something that we all find success from and we all benefit from.
Right. And I guess so I mentioned earlier that we are 49% employee owned. There are some technical reasons why we're not 100% employee owned, which I don't want to get too far into. But it was a decision on Kevin and Sherm, Kevin is our CEO. Sherm is our
COO/founder.
Right. Yes. So they both founded AVIAN. Sherm founded AVIAN before Kevin, but then there's a whole story there. If you haven't seen our 15-year anniversary, I suggest watching that. But there are some technical aspects to why we are 49% employee owned. I just wanted to bring that up. So let's talk about that success story that we always talk about, a government contractor that you may or may not have heard of if you work in the government contracting world, SAIC. So now, present day, SAIC is a public company. Their stock is traded on the stock market. Before they were a public company, they were actually employee owned. And I guess I'll tell the story. The story goes, so it started employee owned, very small company, kind of grew rapidly and
a lot of S&T
exponentially,
work.
right? So at the end of the day, when they shifted from employee owned to public, there were a lot of really, really nice payouts for those people.
6-7 figures for some people.
Yeah. So we actually, one of our chiefs worked for SIC at that time, and he said, so one day the executive assistants were coming in Ford Tauruses and regular cars, and the next day they were coming in Porsches and BMWs and could basically buy whatever they wanted. So really cool kind of success story there. It's cool for us because it's in the same sector that we were in. So it's in the same industry. They were a government contractor. They did more kind of product related things, I would say, than we do, but it's still cool to know that that opportunity is out there.
Well, the major correlation between SAIC and us, especially in their early years, because we kind of studied, they wrote a book about it. We kind of studied, well, what did they do that was successful and why, how are we alike and how are we different? And it's really about being a purpose-driven organization. And SAIC, I don't know much about the inner workings of SAIC
Right.
now, but at least SAIC in the early years, per their book, from their original founder, they were very purpose-driven. They had very specific things that they were going to do, but they also gave their employees the trust and the empowerment to go off and create their own work, to go off and build and grow. And as they continued to do that, they just kind of started standing up all these different, we call them sectors, I don't know, divisions.
Right.
And they just kept growing and growing and growing. And with that autonomy, that is also part of that ownership culture. They treated it like their own. And that's one of the main reasons why they felt like they were so successful.
So off the top of your head, what types of, I don't know if events is the right word, but what types of things do we do? I know you're like the master because you have this all in your head, I hope.
I am the master.
What types of things do we do that directly come out of the employee ownership plan or program? So like, for example, we've always had all hands meetings where it's a lot of internal information passed. Once we became an employee-owned company, it's kind of a small change, but still, I think, significant because it helps people understand, new employees, understand within the company that the titles for those meetings change from all hands meetings to all owners meetings. The information being passed became much more specific. So Kevin, our CEO, was giving us pretty much exact numbers on how the company was doing because now it's something that we should be interested in.
It's a window into the health of the business that, and again, that's part of what AVIAN's culture overall has been over the years.
Right.
They've always been very, very open with what's going on with the organization. But yes, as an ESOP, it starts to then, an employee-owned company, it starts to really fall into place of what those things mean now for individuals, not just, oh, okay, our company's doing really great. That's wonderful. I love being part of a successful company. Yay. You get to experience it in a different way. And especially when the company then provides you with opportunities to again, actually help with some of those ways that are going to increase our company value in the ESOP.
Right. And the one other thing that may go over some folks' heads within AVIAN is that our business development team is growing pretty rapidly, I would say. And that isn't just because they want to grow rapidly. That's because Kevin wants to grow the company, which in the long run is going to help everyone's employee ownership.
It really
package.
helps things to start to click together.
Right.
It provides some of that context, some of that glue behind, you are an employee that is providing a direct service to a particular customer, and that is your job. But you work for a larger organization, and our organizational purpose, our organizational goals, you start to then maybe understand them differently, and how what you are doing with your customer plays a bigger role in the big picture.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So Sarah, the big question, this one may throw you for a loop, not going to lie.
Ooh.
But
Watch
all right,
out.
so let's say scenario, I'm a candidate sitting in an interview and you are trying to sell employee ownership to them. What is it that you would tell them about employee ownership, basically?
I think the biggest, and as you mentioned, Ian, I was here before. I was here about 2 years, I think, before. Yeah, 2 years before we became an ESOP. So I kind of saw that transition. I do feel like we had a very strong employee culture prior to the ESOP. So I don't think that I'm not trying to lessen that at all. But what I would say is that having a culture in an employee ownership program you really do feel like you are doing more than just filling a seat or filling a billet or filling a role. It's maybe a little bit of an added responsibility with that bonus, but it does make it very meaningful to work. You're going to work to support, your part in the ownership as well as your team's part in the ownership. And I think that's an important part too, is that I really want Tara to feel success in her ownership at AVIAN. I want Tara to have a healthy position here for a long, long time. So when I'm going to work and trying to do my best, and employees trying to bring new business or think of innovative new ways to do business, we're doing that for our team as well as ourselves. And I think that's a good feeling. That's more than just punching a time clock. And I feel like many of us really want to do more than just punch a time clock when we come to work. I also believe that when you have a company that you have that much buy-in and that much ownership, then you want to stay with that company and grow and develop and work your way up as well. And I believe that having that type of employee in the company just strengthens it.
Yeah, and there's some past episodes that tie kind of directly into this where we talk about finding your path and all kinds of different things that may seem kind of out there, but they all do tie together and kind of fall under this umbrella of, like you're saying, making sure that you're working for something a little bit more valuable than just punching your time card.
Yeah, and something that Sarah said about kind of celebrating team successes or really recognizing within other people when they do a great job. I think for me, it has added more awareness for me of when people do a great job, when they're doing wonderful, amazing work for their customers. Because then it's like, yes, this is awesome. This is awesome for you personally. This is awesome for the company. And I get to then celebrate that as well because I am part owner in this organization.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think as always with these general topics, there's a lot more that we could talk about with employee ownership. And I think maybe this season we'll touch on employee ownership again. But I do want to wrap it up here. Are there any last minute thoughts that you guys have on employee ownership?
I do think that employee ownership can be separate from employee stock ownership plans. Like you can have an ownership culture within a company without having to have an ESOP.
Yes.
I think an ESOP is an excellent, if you're looking for a job and you see that a company is certified employee owned, that's great. But if they're not, their culture, which again, we've talked about in some of our other episodes, also kind of play into those pieces about what are the benefits of that.
Yeah, and I think when you said that AVIAN had an employee, like a ownership culture before we were actually employee owned, I think, like you said, again, that just made that transition so much easier. Yeah. All right. If that's it, then we can wrap it up. On the next episode, we're talking about the post-pandemic work life. So a full 90-degree turn into what work life might look like after the pandemic. So this is a very hypothetical conversation. We already had it actually, so I can tell you it's actually a really good one, and I'm excited to share it with everybody. Until then, I will see everybody next time. Perfect
She
timing.
waited until the end. That was goodbye from Daisy.